want to put a very quick disclaimer at the beginning of this video because I think it needs to be addressed. Yes, I am wearing a My Hero Academia t-shirt. I have Deku, All Might, and Kirishima behind me, which communicates from me to you, the viewer, that yes, I am a My Hero Academia fan. Now, hold on a second. Just because I'm a My Hero Academia fan does not mean that I'm not going to touch on the bad within this video. All I can aim to do within this video is just open your guys' perspectives to new things. And I understand that My Hero Academia is a really controversial topic here on YouTube. A lot of people think one way or the other when it comes to My Hero Academia, and I just want to give you, my viewer, a very clear understanding of the good and the bad that My Hero Academia does. So without further ado, let's get into the video. The first thing that I want to bring up in this video, which I think is so important to address, is this myth of mainstream or normie anime, and I think that is such a stigma that is something that definitely needs to be gone from the anime community. Because a big problem here on YouTube too is that it is just a toxic atmosphere when it comes to anime and manga. You either come across a creator who is super for something or just super against something, and they just go ham on either glorifying something or just bashing something just to filth. And I think that is such a negative thing to do. I think if you really care about your viewers, you're going to give them the good and the bad and let them formulate their own opinions, which is what exactly I'm doing for you. So when it comes to like normie or mainstream anime, it is such a myth. Just because a lot of people like something does not mean that you have to go against the norm of liking something yourself. Because it has become mainstream, you don't have to have that toxic idea in your head that, oh, now I can't like it because I'm going to be a normie. That is a trait here on YouTube that I think is just used by people who further want to justify their arguments by kind of invalidating a story by calling it a normie thing, if that makes any sense. That is such a toxic thing to have, and I think we just need to get rid of it altogether. So you will never hear me say something is a normie anime or anything like that, because I never want to make anybody feel bad for watching something that they truly enjoy as well. I think that is such a bad thing to do, and that's one of the things that people tend to call My Hero Academia, a normie or an over-popular anime. And I think that is such a weird thing to do because yes, it is a sensation here in the US and in other Western countries and in Japan. That means that it has to be doing something good, right? Like, it can't be as popular as it is without doing and having good qualities. And again, I just think it's one of those things that people use here on YouTube and in other social media platforms to discredit the anime without having justified arguments to prove or back up their case. And in addition, I think it's just one of those things that gets people to agree with a person faster. So if I call something a normie, pathetic, just popular anime that people like, people are less likely to go watch that anime because they feel like they're being targeted now by that entire group of people that have watched that specific video. Another thing that people like to label My Hero Academia as is a children's anime, and especially here on YouTube, that is definitely used throughout a majority of the videos. I want to say, in my personal opinion, a children's anime does not exist. Yes, you can argue that Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Were all showed, especially here in the United States, on children's channels on Saturday, early in the morning for children to see. But if an innocent mom went and bought a Pokemon manga for their child, not really knowing what was going on, that child would open that manga and see Pokemon killing other Pokemon, literally murdering the other Pokemon. Just because it's dumbed down a little bit in the anime, just in case it does reach a younger audience because of parents not necessarily knowing what an anime is, doesn't mean that it's targeted for children. That does not mean it at all. Sometimes it's just dumbed down because there are mistakes made and people do end up showing an anime to their child thinking that it is completely okay, but it's not. No anime or manga has ever really been targeted towards children. The whole reason that manga and anime even exist in the first place is to compensate for the lack of social lives that are in Japan. Japan is so work-oriented that a lot of time people don't have time for a social life. So anime and manga was created to be an outlet for those specific types of people, specifically males, and that's why you see a lot of fan service within anime and manga itself. It is not targeted towards children, it's targeted towards adults that are too busy to have a social life, that need that out to keep their mental health at its maximum and not have that depression that is so prominent in Japan. Let's talk about the color palette. When people see a very lively, colored anime, they automatically assume it's made for children. I'm talking about people who are on the outside. They think it's a cartoon. Maybe people who aren't as versed in the anime world as we are. They automatically think it's a cartoon. And a lot of people tend to agree with that. That is not the case. Just because something like Death Note has a very muted color palette and is more sophisticated in its color choices does not make it more adult than My Hero Academia. And another thing is that the characters are a lot more lively and they are children. You watch these children go through some extreme hardships. You see them go through some really crazy stuff. For example, there are mutilated bones, there is stabbing, there is blood, there is extreme violence in this anime. And even though on the outside it might look like this fun, happy-go-lucky anime, it is not that at all. It is centered around fighting and this gruesome battle between two people and one person getting extremely hurt. So for someone to come on a social media platform and try to argue that something is childish just because of a color palette, or just because they don't agree with the way the storyline is going, or they don't agree with the way characters are acting, does not necessarily really make it a children's anime. And that's another stigma that we really need to end. We can't keep calling things childish just because you don't agree with the philosophies. So now getting into the argument about My Hero Academia that can actually be justified. The timing. The timing is an issue with My Hero Academia, and here's why. In a lot of shonen, you start off with a relatively powerful character and you see them progress throughout the story by encountering other villains and just getting that much more powerful throughout the story, coming across hardships and just gaining more power and power and power, and by the end of the story they're like 30 times more powerful than they were at the start. Now, My Hero Academia is much different in that aspect, and here's why. You start off with a character, Izuku Midoriya, who is not powerful in the slightest. He is quirkless, and you see throughout the story him grow from attaining his power, learning how to control it, using small percentages of it. And I think here's the main baseline issue. People tend to forget what the story is actually called. My Hero Academia. It is not the story of Deku being at his maximum power, fighting crime, being the #1 hero. If they were going to do that, they would have just made a story about All Might. This is Deku's story of his Hero Academia, learning how to use his powers, learning to use them at his fullest in the best capacity that he can, and then becoming the #1 hero. And if I remember correctly, we're still in the first year, second semester of their Hero Academia. Of course he's not going to be able to use his power at 100%. And to be fair, there's so much more coming from the manga that a lot of people don't know is even a thing because they never gave it the time of day. I guarantee you that you are going to be so impressed with the progress that Deku makes, and all of the other characters as well. You might not even like Deku for whatever reason, but there are so many other characters to choose from that you might find one that you like and follow that character's journey to using his or her power to its maximum. And here's the biggest problem with people not really giving the time of day to something, not even My Hero Academia, but if we want to focus on My Hero Academia, there are so many things happening within the anime and the manga itself that a lot of people will never get the chance to see because they labeled it boring, a children's anime, a normie anime. They never gave it the time of day, and you're missing so many crazy things that are happening in the manga right now. And if you could see where Deku started and where Deku is now, not even using 100% of his power, you would be impressed because again, this isn't your normal shonen, and that's what I like about it so much. Even though the timing is a lot slower than another shonen, that's what makes it stand out against the rest. And when you're creating a story, it's very smart to set yourself aside from the norm. Yes, the story does progress very slowly, but when you see even an ounce of progression, it's always super, super cool to see because you're like, yes, finally, something else. And then you just keep going with it and you understand the struggle that he's encountering and everyone else is encountering when learning to use their ability. This is not a story, and it never has been a story that was going to progress super, super fast and he was going to be using 100% of his power all the time. Never, ever, ever was it supposed to be that. It's supposed to be exactly what it is now. My Hero Academia, Deku's Hero Academia, and his stories from that point in his life when he was struggling and his progression throughout the years of him being at UA High. So, I do understand that it can be very tedious for some to watch something that is progressing so slowly, but I also think it's important for us as viewers to kind of step out of our comfort zone and watch something that isn't the norm, because I don't know about you, but I get kind of bored watching like the Seven Deadly Sins fairy tale when you know that the person is just gonna win. You always know the main character's gonna win. And with My Hero Academia, you don't always know that the character's gonna win because you know that they have fault and they're not a perfect character. and I think that is 10 times better than already knowing the outcome of the situation. Kind of branching out from what we just discussed, a lot of people's issues with My Hero Academia is Deku. And the reason for that is, again, his slow progression throughout the story, but not only that, the way he is portrayed in the anime, in the manga, is a little bit iffy at the beginning, because you think of him as a pushover and someone who is weak, which that is not the case whatsoever, but I can definitely see where that is coming from. And a huge issue to do with this is Bakugo. And I know Bakugo is the most loved character in My Hero Academia. He has been since the very beginning. It literally, they do polls and he is the most loved character. But if you have watched Bakugo, you understand what I'm talking about, because Deku being thought of as a weakling and a pushover started from the very beginning of the anime, actually the very beginning of their childhood, when Bakugo used to push around Deku all the time. You have to remember that was when Bakugo had a quirk and Deku did not. But even then, Deku never really let Bakugo get his way. He always stood up for other people who were in danger from Bakugo. He always at least stood up for himself at least once when talking to Bakugo, but he also knew when to back down because he knew he wouldn't win against Bakugo. And that is such a mature thing to do, knowing your limits and knowing when to stand up for somebody. So I can kind of get where Deku can be thought of as a weakling, but you also have to think of his basic character traits. Clear distinction between someone like Deku and someone like Bakugo. Those two have very clear characteristics because one of them is supposed to be the savior hero, one of them is supposed to be the powerful hero. Deku wants to become the #1 hero because he wants to prevent any further harm coming to anybody. Whereas Bakugo wants to become the #1 hero, to be the most powerful fighter, to fight off the bad guys, and show his power through force. Deku doesn't want to do that. And so I think a lot of people confuse heroism for weakness. It's just a different type of heroism than we're used to seeing in a shonen. We always see the main character want to fight back, want to use their force against a villain to prove their power. And that is something that is completely just a norm throughout manga and anime, especially in shonen. You always see the main character want to use force. I think it is such a refreshing thing to at least see one character wanting to use kindness and his power to help people rather than just fight people and beat people up, if that makes sense. I do love the fighting, do not get me wrong. When Deku fights or when anybody else fights, the fighting is amazing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not against fighting in an anime. I'm just saying it is a refreshing thing, but I understand where people are kind of confused because it's not what they're used to. But again, it's up to us, the viewers, to step out of our comfort zone and experience new things, or else we're never going to branch out and we might be missing out on some really cool stuff. Me personally, I think that there's a little bit of something for everybody to enjoy. There's comedy, there's seriousness, there's fighting, there's excellent fighting, there's an interesting plethora of characters throughout the story that create a very diverse world, and there's kind of this weird thing where the main characters aren't even the most loved. It's side characters that you see every so often, and I think that's so cool that people still watch the story even though they might not like the main character. And I think that's just another thing that's super cool about My Hero Academia. It gives enough time to other characters so that people can like them just as much as they might like the main character. So in my opinion, I think you should give it a shot, and I will be covering it on my channel, so if you want to kind of just tune in and you're okay with spoilers and you just want to see where the manga is and if you might like it, I completely understand that. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell below to be notified of when those videos come out. And my rant is done. I have tried filming this 3 times. And my mouth is dry, my coffee is gone, and I am extremely tired and sick. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!